Lucas Harrington, a reckless millionaire heir, loses his fortune overnight. Forced to work in a deli, he discovers the true meaning of wealth through hard labor, community, and the love of a single mother and her daughter. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from. Comment below. Lucas Harrington steps into the Argent Lounge like he owns it. The exclusive rooftop club pulses with artificial life. Crystal chandeliers casting prismatic shadows across glass floors. Bartenders pouring $1,000 spirits into cut crystal. Beautiful people pretending not to watch his entrance. He adjusts his Armani sleeve, more from habit than necessity. The fabric costs more than most people make in a month, tailored to his frame with the kind of precision that speaks of old money and older expectations. Mr. Harrington. The head of security nods with practiced deference. Your usual table is ready. Lucas doesn't acknowledge him. Why should he? The man exists in that peripheral space reserved for service staff and distant relatives, present but irrelevant. Instead, Lucas scans the VIP section where New York's elite play at being ordinary. A tech CEO pretends his latest app will change the world. A hedge fund manager laughs too loudly at his own jokes. A model picks at a salad that costs as much as her shoes. His phone buzzes, another message from his father. Lucas silences it without looking, the motion smooth as muscle memory. Richard Harrington's lectures can wait. They always do. Lucas. Josh Matthews waves from their corner booth, his grin wide and empty as a carnival prize. Get over here, man. Camille's threatening to bail before midnight. Camille St. Clair rolls her eyes, all elegant angles and calculated disdain. Some of us have actual jobs, Josh. Modeling's not a job, Lucas says, sliding into the booth. It's professional genetics. Camille's laugh sounds expensive, like everything else about her, says the man who's never worked a day in his life. Why would I? Lucas signals a waiter. Bring us the 82 Cristal. Actually, make it 2 bottles. He turns back to Camille. Working is for people who can't afford not to. The waiter returns with their champagne, presenting it with the reverence reserved for religious artifacts. Lucas takes the first bottle, stands, and begins pouring it over the glass bar top. The liquid catches the light, creating a golden waterfall that splashes onto the floor. Nearby patrons gasp and whisper. A few pull out phones to capture the moment. You're insane, Josh says, but his eyes gleam with vicarious thrill. Lucas grabs the second bottle. I'm bored. There's a difference. He hands his car keys to a wide-eyed busboy. Here, take the Aston for a spin. Try not to scratch it. The busboy stares at the keys like they might bite. Sir, I can't. Sure you can. Lucas drapes an arm around Camille. Everyone deserves a taste of the good life. Hours blur like headlights on wet pavement. Lucas orders drinks he doesn't finish, makes promises he won't remember, laughs at jokes that stopped being funny 3 trust funds ago. His credit card opens doors, buys smiles, creates the illusion of connection. When his phone lights up with his father's face again, he holds it up like a trophy. The great Richard Harrington, he announces to no one in particular, probably calling to remind me about tomorrow's board meeting. He declines the call with a flourish. Oops. Your dad's going to kill you, Camille says, but her tone suggests this outcome would be entertaining rather than tragic. Lucas pulls up his Instagram, where 200,000 followers await his next post. He snaps a photo of the champagne-soaked bar, adds a filter that makes the waist look artistic. The caption writes itself, living like tomorrow doesn't exist. Blessed life, Harrington style. Tomorrow always exists, Josh says, attempting profundity through his champagne haze. That's the problem. Lucas watches likes accumulate in real time, each heart a tiny validation. Tomorrow only exists if you acknowledge it. The night stretches like taffy, sweet and artificial. Lucas moves through it like a prince among peasants, dispensing largesse in the form of overpriced bottles and empty compliments. No one asks about his goals or dreams. No one mentions the newspapers speculating about Harrington Enterprises' succession plans. In the Argent Lounge, Lucas exists in a perpetual present tense, untouchable and unchanged. Dawn finds him sprawled across imported leather seats, his penthouse windows offering a privileged view of Central Park. The sun paints Manhattan in shades of gold and promise, but Lucas keeps his eyes closed. Reality can wait. It always does. His phone chimes with a text from his mother. The Wellington Charity Gala is tonight. Your father expects you there. No excuses this time. Lucas leaves it unread, like the stack of mail on his marble countertop. Bills, invitations, responsibilities, they pile up like dead leaves, waiting for someone else to sweep them away. He steps over designer clothes strewn across Italian tile, remnants of better nights or worse mornings. The morning light is merciless, highlighting empty bottles and emptier spaces. Lucas adjusts his tie in a mirror worth more than most cars, practicing the smile that opens doors and closes conversations. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, perfect emptiness behind perfect eyes. Mr. Harrington, his building's doorman greets him with practiced warmth. Shall I call your car? Lucas waves him off, already focusing on his phone. Josh has texted the address for brunch. Some new place where the waitlist is longer than the menu. Camille's already there, according to her Instagram story. The post shows her artfully arranged beside a $40 smoothie, her caption a study in calculated casualness. Sunday necessities with @Lucas Harrington and Josh Matthews. Brunch crew weekend vibe. The restaurant exists in that rarefied space between exclusive and exhausting. Lucas slides into their booth without waiting for the hostess, ignoring her flutter of protest. Josh barely looks up from his phone, his attention captured by some digital urgency. Camille offers her cheek for an air kiss that costs nothing and means less. Page 6 has the video, Josh says by way of greeting. You pouring champagne everywhere. They're calling you Manhattan's most entitled. Lucas signals for coffee. Dad's PR team will handle it. My agent says I should distance myself. Camille examines her reflection in a silver spoon. Something about brand alignment and public perception. Your agent needs better Botox. Lucas scrolls through the article, amused by the manufactured outrage. Besides, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Their phones buzz simultaneously, a group text from Lucas's father. Josh whistles low. Sounds pissed. Lucas deletes the message unread. Same lecture, different day. Responsibility this, legacy that. He'll get over it. Will he? Camille's tone carries an edge of genuine concern. The board's been talking. My father says... Your father says a lot of things. Lucas cuts her off with practiced precision. None of them matter. They retreat into their phones, digital shields against real conversation. The food arrives, overpriced and underportioned, perfect for their Instagram stories. Lucas pushes his eggs around his plate, the hollow feeling in his stomach having nothing to do with hunger. His father's voicemail waits like a time bomb. Lucas, we need to talk. You're out of control. This has to stop. Back in his penthouse, Lucas pours 3 fingers of 30-year-old scotch into a crystal tumbler. The liquid catches the light like amber promises, familiar as disappointment. He walks to the floor-to-ceiling windows, where Manhattan spreads before him like a conquered kingdom. The whiskey burns, but not enough to drown the quiet voice suggesting that maybe, just maybe, his father is right. Lucas silences it with another drink, the way he silences all inconvenient truths. The Harrington name is armor enough against consequences. It always has been. His phone lights up with notifications. Instagram comments praising his lifestyle, Twitter mentions debating his latest escapade, news alerts dissecting his behavior. Lucas scrolls through them with the detached interest of a king reviewing his subjects. The headlines blur together. Harrington heir trends again, rich kids gone wild, dynasty in crisis. A new video surfaces. Lucas behind the wheel of his Aston Martin, racing through Central Park's winding paths. The fountain appears like a liquid sculpture in his headlights. He remembers thinking it would look beautiful, exploding into diamond droplets. The impact sends water arcing against the night sky, his laughter a soundtrack to destruction. Social media erupts. The hashtags multiply like digital locusts. Harrington Havoc, Rich Kids Gone Wild, Entitled Elite. Lucas watches the numbers climb, each share and retweet a tiny rebellion against responsibility. His father's number appears on his phone again. This time, Lucas answers. My office, Richard Harrington says. Now. The Harrington Enterprises building cuts through Manhattan's skyline like an exclamation point. 90 stories of glass and steel declaring their dominance over mere mortals. Lucas steps into his father's office on the top floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows offer a god's-eye view of the city they own. Richard Harrington stands with his back to the door, a silhouette carved from ambition and expectations. Do you have any idea what you've done? Lucas drops into a leather chair, affecting boredom. It's just a fountain, Dad. Write a check. Richard turns, his face flushed with genuine anger. He slaps a tablet onto his desk. News sites splash across the screen, each headline more damning than the last. This isn't about money, Lucas. It's about responsibility, legacy, everything we've built. Everything you've built, Lucas corrects. I didn't ask for any of this. No? Richard's voice could freeze champagne. Then perhaps it's time you learned what life is like without it. The warning hangs between them like smoke before a fire. Lucas stands, straightening his jacket with practiced indifference. Are we done? One more mistake? Richard says to his sons retreating back. One more embarrassment, and you're on your own. Lucas lets the threat roll off him like water off waxed cotton. His father's warnings are as empty as the champagne bottles in his penthouse. The Harrington name is bulletproof. It has to be. Morning arrives with apocalyptic clarity. Lucas's phone explodes with notifications, each one a nail in a coffin he didn't know was being built. News anchors dissect his latest scandal with barely concealed glee. Heir or hazard, they ask, as if the question needs answering. His father's number appears. Lucas answers on autopilot, still half asleep. You're cut off. Richard's voice carries the finality of a judge's gavel. Bank accounts frozen. Credit cards canceled. Don't come home. The line goes dead before Lucas can process the words. He tries his credit card. Declined. His banking app shows zeros where millions used to live. Panic rises like bile in his throat. His building's manager arrives with efficient cruelty. You have 30 minutes, Mr. Harrington. Building policy regarding non-payment is quite clear. Lucas calls Josh, straight to voicemail. Camille's number is suddenly not in service. Even distant cousins who once begged for his attention now screen his calls. His social circle evaporates like morning dew, leaving nothing but cold reality in its wake. He stuffs designer clothes into a single suitcase, the labels mockingly expensive. The elevator that once carried him to his penthouse paradise now delivers him to purgatory. The doorman who used to greet him by name now studies his shoes, avoiding eye contact. The street feels different at ground level. Lucas walks without direction, his Italian leather shoes already scuffing on concrete reality. The crowds part around him like no longer deferential but simply uninterested. He is a deposed king in a city that's already forgotten his reign. East Briarwood greets him with indifference. The neighborhood exists in a parallel universe to his former life. Graffiti replacing marble, corner stores standing in for boutiques. Lucas's suitcase catches on cracked sidewalks, its wheels as unsuited for this terrain as he is. A corner store's neon signs flicker like dying stars. Lucas stops, suddenly aware of his designer suit's absurdity in this context. His reflection in the dirty window shows a man out of place and time, a peacock in a world of pigeons. When his suitcase tips, spilling Italian silk across dirty concrete, it feels like cosmic commentary. Lucas stares at his scattered belongings, unsure whether to laugh or cry. You look lost. The voice belongs to a woman juggling grocery bags while keeping one eye on a young girl. Maria Alvarez, though Lucas doesn't know her name yet, regards him with skeptical kindness. Her daughter, Sophia, peeks around her mother's legs with unguarded curiosity. Lucas opens his mouth to dismiss her, to maintain the walls between his world and hers. But his world doesn't exist anymore. The words die in his throat. Maria sets down her bags with a sigh that suggests she's already regretting what comes next. Need help? The question hangs between them like a bridge between universes. Lucas looks at his scattered clothes, at his scuffed shoes, at the life he thought was bulletproof now lying in pieces on a dirty sidewalk. I don't know, he says, and it's the first honest thing he said in years. The couch cushions sag beneath Lucas as he slouches in Maria's cramped living room. His Armani jacket, wrinkled now from sleeping in it, looks as out of place as he feels. The fabric that once marked him as untouchable now only highlights how far he's fallen. Maria sets a chipped mug of coffee on the scratched table, the ceramic clinking against the worn wood. She stands with her arms crossed, studying him like a problem that needs solving. You need to figure out what you're going to do, Lucas. Lucas runs his fingers through his disheveled hair, letting out a bitter laugh that sounds hollow even to his own ears. This is temporary. My father will come around. The words taste like ash in his mouth, but he clings to them anyway. His phone sits cold and silent beside him. its blank screen a mockery of his certainty. He refreshes his email again. Nothing. No missed calls, no texts, no desperate attempts to reach him. The gnawing in his stomach has nothing to do with hunger. Maria's footsteps echo against the linoleum as she crosses to the kitchen counter. Paper rustles as she returns, holding out a wrinkled flyer. There's work at Briarwood's Deli. They need help stocking shelves. Her tone brooks no argument. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. Lucas's lip curls as he stares at the paper. The mere thought of stocking shelves makes his skin crawl. You expect me to work in a deli? The words drip with inherited disdain. Maria's jaw tightens, a muscle flickering beneath her skin. You need to start somewhere. Her dark eyes flash with something between anger and disappointment. Your money's gone, Lucas. This is reality. If you don't want to starve, you'll take the job. Lucas mutters a curse under his breath, his pride stinging like an open wound. He snatches the paper from her hand, shoving it deep into his pocket where he doesn't have to look at it. The paper crumples satisfyingly beneath his fingers. Later, alone in the spare room that's become his temporary prison, Lucas pulls out the creased flyer. His stomach growls, the sound embarrassingly loud in the quiet room. He hasn't eaten since yesterday. Can't remember the last time he went this long without food being handed to him on a silver platter. His fingers tighten around the paper, crinkling it further. The weight of his situation presses down on him like a physical thing. With bitter resolve, Lucas mutters, "Fine, just for now." The next morning finds Lucas at Briarwood's Deli, wearing the last of his clean clothes, a designer shirt that costs more than most people make in a week. Mr. Peters, the manager, looks him up and down with undisguised skepticism. He's a stocky man in his 50s, with calloused hands and eyes that have seen every type of worker come through his doors. Here. Peters tosses a worn apron at Lucas's chest. The fabric feels rough against his fingers, nothing like the silk and cotton he's used to. Stock those shelves and keep up. No slacking. Lucas glares at the apron, then at the cramped aisles stuffed with canned goods and supplies. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows, making everything look cheap and artificial. His new reality, laid bare under unforgiving illumination. The first box nearly takes him down, Dant. Lucas's arms shake as he lifts it, muscles unused to actual labor, protesting the sudden demand. Sweat beads on his forehead before he's even finished unpacking it. Each can feels heavier than the last, and his soft hands, manicured just days ago, begin to blister. "You're doing it wrong," a voice drawls behind him. Lucas turns to find a teenage stockboy watching him with barely concealed amusement. The kid's name tag reads Jared in messy Sharpie. "Rich kid can't even lift a box right," Jared mutters, just loud enough for Lucas to hear. Heat rushes to Lucas's face. His first instinct is to snap back, to remind this minimum wage nobody exactly who he's talking to. The words rise in his throat like bile. But what would they prove? That he used to be somebody? That he still thinks he's better than this? Lucas swallows his retort along with his pride. The silence that follows tastes like defeat. Customers brush past him without a glance, their eyes sliding over him like he's part of the scenery, invisible, unimportant. Each minute on the clock crawls by with excruciating slowness, marking time in a way Lucas has never had to notice before. By hour 4, Lucas's entire body aches. His designer shirt sticks to his back with sweat, and his hands throb with every box he lifts. Mr. Peters' voice cuts through his misery. "Keep moving, Harrington!" Lucas clenches his jaw so hard it hurts. This isn't worth it. None of this is worth it. He could walk out right now, find some other way, but Maria's disdainful look flashes through his mind. The empty refrigerator in her apartment, his own rumbling stomach. The reality of his situation crashes over him again, and Lucas forces himself to keep moving, his pride hanging by a thread. The next day dawns with brutal clarity. Lucas arrives at the deli with simmering resentment burning beneath his skin. He attacks a crate of canned goods like it's personally offended him, his movements sharp and angry. "Careful with those," Mr. Peters warns from behind the counter. "They're inventory, not punching bags." Lucas rolls his eyes, his patience worn tissue thin. "I've got it," he snaps, hefting the crate with more force than necessary. His arms shake with the effort, but he's too stubborn to admit it. The crash echoes through the store like a gunshot. Cans scatter across the floor, rolling in every direction. Customers turn to stare. Lucas stands frozen in the midst of the chaos, his face burning. Mr. Peters' complexion darkens to an alarming shade of red. Harrington! His voice carries the weight of decades of dealing with worthless employees. If you can't handle this, you're out. Later, Lucas storms into Maria's apartment, slams his keys onto the table hard enough to make the cheap wood rattle. Maria sits at the kitchen table, helping Sophia with homework. Math problems spread across the surface like a paper battlefield. This job is a joke! Lucas paces the small space like a caged animal. I don't need this. Maria rises slowly from her chair, her movements deliberate. Her eyes narrow as she watches him wear a path in her linoleum. You think you're too good for hard work? Newsflash, Lucas, you don't have a choice. You don't get it, Lucas scoffs, running his hands through his hair. Maria steps closer, her voice dropping to something cold and sharp. I get it perfectly. You're feeling sorry for yourself instead of trying to change. She meets his gaze without flinching. Grow up. The words hit Lucas like a physical blow. He retreats to the street, letting the door slam behind him. The night air does nothing to cool his anger as he paces the cracked sidewalk, but with each step, the fury begins to fade, leaving something else in its wake. Shame creeps in around the edges, an unwelcome visitor making itself at home in his chest. For the first time, Lucas wonders if Maria might be right. His hands throb, reminder of a day's honest work. His ego feels just as bruised. Lucas catches his reflection in a grimy store window and barely recognizes the man staring back. The perfectly coiffed hair is disheveled, the designer clothes wrinkled and stained with honest sweat. A thought worms its way into his mind, unwelcome but persistent. Maybe this isn't just temporary. Maybe this is who Lucas Harrington is now. The realization settles in his chest like a stone, heavy with the weight of truth. Evening finds Lucas trudging up the apartment stairs, his body aching from another shift at the deli. The dim light spilling from beneath Maria's door guides him home, and when did he start thinking of this place as home? He pushes the door open quietly, but the scene in the kitchen stops him short. Maria hunches over the table, her shoulders curved with exhaustion. Bills spread before her like fallen leaves, their red past due stamps visible even from the doorway. Sophia sleeps on the worn couch, her small form curled around a teddy bear that's seen better days. The stuffing shows through at one seam, but Sophia clutches it like it's precious. Lucas watches as Maria counts crumpled dollar bills with trembling fingers. Her movements are precise, desperate. The mathematics of survival played out on a kitchen table. The sight hits Lucas like a punch to the gut. He remembers nights at the Argent Lounge, thousands of dollars poured onto the floor for Instagram likes. The memory tastes bitter now. Lucas drops heavily into a kitchen chair, his exhaustion mingling with something that feels uncomfortably like shame. Maria glances up briefly before returning to her counting. Up close, the dark circles under her eyes look like bruises. How do you do it? The question slips out before Lucas can stop it, soft and uncertain in the quiet kitchen. Maria looks up again, her eyes weary but determined. Because I have to. She nods toward Sophia's sleeping form. For her. The simplicity of her answer cuts deeper than any lecture. Lucas sits in silence, the weight of Maria's words settling over him like a blanket. For the first time, he sees strength, not in the power to dominate or the ability to buy respect, but in the quiet determination to keep going when giving up isn't an option. Lucas looks down at his hands, studying the blisters and calluses forming from honest work. Maybe the job at the deli isn't beneath him. Maybe it's exactly where he needs to be right now, a chance to become someone worth respecting. A flicker of resolve ignites in his chest, small but steady. Lucas straightens in his chair, decision crystallizing. I won't quit, he mutters. More to himself than to Maria. The words hang in the air between them, a promise waiting to be proven. Lucas's hands move with practiced efficiency as he stocks the shelves at Briarwood's deli, muscle memory replacing the awkward fumbling of his first weeks. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across rows of canned goods and boxed cereals, but he barely notices anymore. His Rolex is long gone, replaced by the steady tick of the wall clock marking his shift. Hey, Lucas! Mrs. Jenkins wheels her cart down the aisle, her arthritis-twisted fingers gripping the handle. Got any of that low-sodium soup in today? Just got a fresh shipment. Lucas reaches for the top shelf, grabbing 3 cans of her usual brand. How's Mr. Jenkins doing? Good days and bad. She accepts the cans with a grateful nod. More bad lately, but he still asks about you, says you remind him of himself before the war straightened him out. Lucas's throat tightens. He used to hate these conversations, mundane exchanges about ordinary lives. Now they anchor him to something real, something beyond the artificial glitter of his past life. The bell above the door chimes. Daryl stomps in, work boots tracking concrete dust across the linoleum. Need some stuff for the crew, he announces, heading straight for the snack aisle. That new high-rise is killing us today. Lucas follows, already reaching for the protein bars Daryl's team favors. I set some aside. Figure you guys need the energy more than the suits buying their afternoon lattes. Daryl's weathered face cracks into a grin. Look at you, thinking ahead. He loads his arms with snacks. You're getting the hang of this, rich boy. The nickname doesn't sting anymore. Lucas has earned it, not for his wealth, but for the distance he's traveled from it. Lucas, Jared's voice carries from the storage room. Little help with these boxes? Coming. Lucas heads to the back, where Jared struggles with a stack of heavy detergent boxes. Without comment, Lucas takes half the load. Together, they maneuver the boxes through the narrow doorway. Thanks, man. Jared wipes his forehead. Used to hate asking for help, you know. Thought it made me look weak. Lucas thinks of his own pride, how it shattered on these same stockroom floors. Yeah, I get that. Mr. Peters appears in the doorway, his perpetual scowl softened by something almost like approval. He nods once at Lucas before disappearing back into his office. The gesture lands like an award ceremony in Lucas's chest. The shift ends as the sun sets, painting East Briarwood's concrete canyons in shades of amber and shadow. Lucas's feet ache as he climbs the stairs to Maria's apartment. The elevator's been broken for weeks, and the building manager's promises to fix it ring as hollow as Lucas's old party invitations. The apartment door creaks open to reveal dim lights and the lingering scent of microwaved leftovers. Maria sits at the kitchen table, surrounded by a fortress of paperwork. Her dark hair falls in loose strands around her face, and shadows pool beneath her eyes. She doesn't look up as Lucas enters, too focused on the forms before her. On the couch, Sophia sleeps fitfully. A damp washcloth rests on her forehead, and her cheeks flush with fever. Lucas watches her small chest rise and fall, each breath seeming to cost too much effort. Rough day? Maria's voice breaks through his thoughts. She offers a weak smile that doesn't reach her tired eyes. Lucas nods, guilt churning in his stomach. His rough day of honest work feels trivial compared to the weight Maria carries. He moves to the refrigerator, ostensibly for water, but his eyes catch on the calendar pinned there. The paper is crowded with Maria's neat handwriting. Morning shifts at the diner bleed into afternoon cleaning jobs. Doctor appointments compete with school meetings. In the margins, stark reminders. Rent due, electric bill, Sophia, doctor? That question mark feels like an accusation. Lucas stares at it, remembering champagne fountains and $1,000 bar tabs. The contrast turns his stomach. Maria appears beside him, reaching for a glass. She notices his gaze and hesitates. Sophia's been running a fever, she admits quietly. Her voice carries the weight of too many impossible choices. I need to take her to the doctor, but... She gestures at the calendar, at the endless parade of shifts and obligations. I can't miss another shift. We can't afford. The words trail off, but their echo fills the kitchen. Lucas feels anger rise in his chest, not at Maria, but at a world where mothers must choose between work and their sick children. At himself, for never understanding the true cost of his careless wealth. A harsh cough breaks the silence. Sophia's small frame shakes with the force of it, and the sound cuts through Lucas like broken glass. He moves toward the couch, concern overriding his usual hesitation. Sophia's forehead burns against his palm, her skin flushed and dry. Maria! The urgency in his voice brings her running. Maria presses her hand to Sophia's forehead, her face draining of color. The fever's worse, she whispers. Fear trembles beneath her words. Lucas watches helplessness wash over Maria's features, and something shifts inside him. The woman who has been his anchor, his guide through this new world, looks lost. Her strength, always so absolute, cracks like thin ice. We need to get her to a doctor, Lucas insists. Maria's eyes fill with tears she refuses to let fall. I can't afford it. The words hit Lucas like physical blows. He steps back, memories flooding his mind, swiping platinum cards without checking balances, dropping thousands on bottle service, treating money like an infinite resource. Now he stands in this dim apartment, watching a mother choose between her child's health and next month's rent. Maria cradles Sofia, whispering soothing Spanish words. Her tears fall silently, each one a testament to the fragility of her world. One missed shift, one medical bill, one crisis could shatter everything she's built. Lucas feels an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. For once, his mind isn't on his own problems, his lost fortune, his damaged pride. All he sees is Sofia's labored breathing and Maria's silent tears. He takes a shaky breath. Maria, let me help. His voice steadies as purpose fills him. I know someone, a doctor who owes me a favor. Maria looks up, torn between desperation and pride. Lucas understands that battle now intimately. Please, he softens his voice. Let me do something right for once. Maria closes her eyes, exhaustion winning over pride. Okay. Lucas steps into the night air, his phone heavy in his trembling hand. He scrolls through his contacts, muscle memory, finding Dr. Caroline Mitchell's number. She'd patched him up after a drunken accident last year, keeping it quiet to protect the Harrington name. Lucas's thumb hovers over the call button as anxiety swirls in his gut. He hasn't spoken to Caroline since his fall from grace, since the headlines and the whispers and the closed doors. But Sofia's fevered face fills his mind, and pride becomes a luxury he can't afford. The phone rings 3 times before Caroline answers. Lucas? Her voice carries professional frost. What do you want? Lucas swallows hard. I need help. He pauses, forcing the next words out. Not for me, for a little girl. She's really sick. Silence stretches between them. Lucas braces for rejection, for the click that will end his last connection to his old world. Caroline sighs, the sound heavy with memories and obligations. Bring her to my clinic. I'll see what I can do. Relief floods Lucas's system, making his knees weak. For the first time since his exile, he feels the weight of doing something that matters. Back in the apartment, Lucas helps Maria wrap Sofia in a blanket. The girl's small body burns against his chest as he carries her down the stairs. The 3 of them hurry through dark streets, past shuttered bodegas and flickering streetlights. Dr. Caroline Mitchell's clinic glows like a lighthouse in the darkness. The antiseptic smell and fluorescent lights blur around Lucas as they enter. Caroline takes Sofia with gentle efficiency, her professional mask hiding any reaction to Lucas's changed circumstances. In the waiting room, Maria clasps her hands together, lips moving in silent prayer. Lucas watches her, feeling the full weight of this moment. Fear and hope war in his chest, along with something deeper, a sense of purpose he's never known. Whatever happens next, Lucas knows he's crossed a line within himself. The man who poured champagne on marble floors seems like a stranger now. That version of Lucas Harrington died somewhere between the high-rise penthouses and these vinyl waiting room chairs. In its place, something new takes root. Something built on the understanding that true wealth has nothing to do with bank accounts or family names. It grows in the space between Sofia's labored breaths and Maria's whispered prayers, in the knowledge that helping others matters more than helping himself. There's no going back. And for the first time in his life, Lucas doesn't want to. The morning sun slants through Briarwood Deli's clouded windows, painting strips of gold across the scuffed linoleum floor. Lucas adjusts his apron, cotton, not designer silk, and hefts another box of produce onto the metal shelving. His muscles protest, still unused to honest labor, but he welcomes the burn. Each ache feels like penance for years of waste. Mr. Peters watches from behind the counter, his weathered face impossible to read. Rotation matters with produce, he says, nodding at the lettuce Lucas is arranging. Oldest in front. People deserve fresh food, even if they're watching every penny. Lucas nods, rearranging the display with careful attention. 6 weeks ago, he would have scorned such menial work. Now he finds satisfaction in the simple logic of it. Everything has its place, its purpose. The bell above the door chimes and Mrs. Jenkins shuffles in, her arthritis making each step deliberate. Morning, Mrs. Jenkins. Lucas hurries to grab a shopping basket for her. How's Frank doing after the surgery? Better every day. Thanks for asking. Her smile transforms her lined face. That soup you recommended last week really helped. The warmth in her voice settles in Lucas's chest, different from the hollow validation of his Instagram followers. He'd known thousands of people in his old life, but he'd never really known any of them. Here, every interaction feels real, grounded in something deeper than status or wealth. Jared from the auto shop down the street bursts in, still wearing his grease-stained uniform. Man, did you see that game last night? Fourth quarter was brutal. Brutal is right. Lucas bags Jared's usual sandwich order without being asked. That last pass interference call was garbage. Finally, someone who gets it. Jared slaps a few crumpled bills on the counter. Hey, you still up for helping me with that transmission this weekend? Could use an extra pair of hands. Lucas nods, surprised by how much he's looking forward to it. The work will be dirty, exhausting, and completely satisfying. Wouldn't miss it. The morning rushes by in a blur of familiar faces and small kindnesses. Lucas finds himself moving with the rhythm of the store, anticipating needs before they're voiced. Mr. Peters catches his eye occasionally, offering slight nods that feel like victory medals. When his shift ends, Lucas grabs his worn backpack and a bag of groceries. The pack contains his work clothes, laundered at the corner laundromat rather than sent out to some nameless service. The groceries are carefully chosen. Fresh vegetables, whole grain pasta, the chocolate cookies Sophia loves, but Maria rarely splurges on. The walk to Maria's apartment takes him past storefronts he once would have dismissed as beneath his notice. Now he knows the stories behind each one. The Pakistani family that runs the corner store, working to put their daughter through medical school, the elderly Cuban couple at the bakery, who still dance together when they think no one's watching. Maria's building stands solid, if unremarkable. Its red brick facade, honest about its purpose. Lucas takes the stairs 2 at a time, his legs stronger now from daily climbs. The door opens before he knocks. Sophia must have been watching for him. Lucas! She launches herself at him, and he catches her one arm, the grocery bag secure in his other hand. Did you bring cookies? He grins. Maybe, but homework first, right? Maria looks up from where she's helping Sophia with math problems at the kitchen table. Her dark hair is pulled back in a practical braid, a few strands escaping to frame her face. Something in Lucas's chest tightens at the sight. Dinner's on me tonight, he says, unpacking the groceries. Maria raises an eyebrow but can't quite hide her smile. You don't have to. I want to. The words come easily now, genuine in a way his old life's extravagant gestures never were. Besides, Sophia promised to teach me her secret pasta sauce recipe. It's Abuela's recipe, Sophia corrects seriously, and you have to stir it exactly 37 times or it won't taste right. Lucas listens as Maria talks about her day while they cook. The regular customers at the diner, the new family that moved in down the hall, the community center's upcoming fundraiser. Her voice rises and falls like music, painting pictures of lives interconnected by something stronger than money. When Sophia mentions needing supplies for her science project, Lucas's offer to help comes naturally. A volcano, huh? I think between us we can build something spectacular. The evening settles around them like a comfortable blanket. Lucas finds himself studying Maria's profile as she helps Sophia with her homework, wondering how he ever thought designer labels and VIP rooms could compare to this. Later that week, Lucas helps Mrs. Hernandez with her groceries, climbing the steep stairs to her third-floor apartment. His shirt sticks to his back with sweat, but he keeps his pace steady, matching her small steps. You're a good boy, Lucas, she says when they reach her door, patting his cheek like his own grandmother never did. The words follow him down the stairs, warming him more than any social media praise ever had. On his way back to the deli, he passes Mr. Chen watering the flowers outside his restaurant, Ms. Rodriguez walking her ancient poodle, Tommy from the hardware store fixing someone's stuck window. Each offers a nod, a wave, a greeting that carries the weight of belonging. Lucas realizes with a clarity that stops him mid-stride that he's no longer the outsider here. These streets, these people, they've become his community, his home in a way the Upper East Side never was. The thought straightens his spine, adds purpose to his steps. His phone buzzes in his pocket. The unknown number makes him hesitate, his thumb hovering over the screen. Something in his gut tightens, warning him. Finally, he answers. Lucas? His father's voice slides through the connection like ice water down his spine. We need to talk. Lucas's free hand clenches, muscle memory from countless similar calls. But this time, he's standing on a cracked sidewalk in East Briarwood, not lounging in a penthouse. What is it? His voice sounds strange to his own ears, caught between who he was and who he's becoming. It's time to end this little experiment of yours. Richard Harrington's tone carries the weight of boardroom decisions and billion-dollar deals. The family is willing to forgive your indiscretions. Your accounts will be restored, your position reinstated, on one condition. Lucas already knows, but he asks anyway. What condition? Cut ties with the Alvarez woman in that neighborhood. Come back where you belong. The words hit like a physical blow. Lucas finds himself walking, letting his feet carry him while his mind races. The streets of East Briarwood blur past, the deli where he's learned the value of honest work, the park where he helps Sophia practice softball, the community center where Maria volunteers. You've had your fun, his father continues, mistaking silence for consideration. You've proven whatever point you needed to prove. It's time to come home. Home. The word echoes in Lucas's head as he drops onto a bench in Greenpoint Park. Wind whips through the trees, carrying the scent of coming rain. His old life stretches before him like a golden road. Parties, penthouses, privilege. No more counting coins for laundry. No more aching muscles from manual labor. No more lying awake at night, wondering if he's doing enough, being enough. But also no more genuine smiles from Mrs. Jenkins. No more satisfaction of earning respect through actions rather than name. No more Sophia's laughter or Maria's quiet strength. Lucas covers his face with his hands, the choice crushing him like a physical weight. Everything he'd once taken for granted, comfort, status, security, lies within reach. All he has to do is turn his back on the only real things he's ever known. The walk to Maria's apartment feels longer than usual, each step heavy with consequence. The familiar sounds of dinner preparation drift through the door. Sophia's chatter, the clatter of pots, Maria's quiet humming. Lucas's stomach twists. Maria notices his expression the moment he steps inside. What happened? The smell of dinner hangs in the air, but Lucas's appetite has vanished. He forces the words out. My father called. He wants me to come back. He'll give me everything, my inheritance, my old life. The next words feel like glass in his throat, but only if I leave you and this place behind. Maria goes still, her eyes searching his face. And what did you say? Lucas stares at the floor, his silence stretching like a shadow between them. The apartment suddenly feels too small, too fragile to contain the weight of this moment. Maria takes a step back, wrapping her arms around herself. The gesture hits Lucas like a punch to the gut. So, you're thinking about it? Her voice trembles with something between anger and hurt. After everything, you still want to run back to that life? It's not that simple, Lucas says, the words sounding weak even to his own ears. It's everything I've ever known. And what about this? Maria gestures to the modest apartment, to Sophia's drawings spread across the table, to the life they've been building together. What about us? The pain in her voice cuts deeper than any society columnist's barbs ever did. I won't let Sophia get attached to someone who's just going to leave, Maria says, each word precise and cutting. If you're going to choose them, then go now. Lucas reaches for her hand, but she pulls away. The distance between them feels vast suddenly, measured not in feet but in the worlds they come from. Maria, I don't know what to do. His voice cracks with desperation. Maria takes a deep breath, her eyes shining with unshed tears. You need to decide what kind of man you want to be, Lucas. I can't make that choice for you. On the couch, Sophia sleeps peacefully, one arm curled around her worn, stuffed rabbit. The sight of her, trusting, innocent, unaware of the storm brewing, makes Lucas's chest ache. The thought of walking away from this small, precious life they've built fills him with a dread deeper than any he'd felt when losing his fortune. Lucas realizes, standing in Maria's kitchen with the weight of two worlds pressing down on him, that whatever choice he makes will define not just his future, but who he truly is. The man who takes the easy road back to privilege, or the one who stays to build something real one day at a time. The choice looms before him like a crossroads, and for the first time in his life, money isn't the answer. It's the question. Lucas Harrington sits alone in Greenpoint Park, his breath misting in the December air. Manhattan's skyline pierces the gray horizon, a glass and steel monument to everything he once was. He flexes his hands, feeling the rough calluses that mark his transformation. 6 months ago, these hands held crystal champagne flutes and steering wheels worth more than houses. Now they know the weight of produce crates, the sting of dish soap, the honest ache of real work. The park bench creaks beneath him. Around him, life moves with quiet purpose. A father pushes his daughter on a swing, her laughter cutting through the chill. Two elderly men huddle over a chessboard, their concentration absolute. A woman in scrubs hurries past, probably heading to her next shift. Lucas watches them all. These people he once would have considered beneath his notice. Now he sees the dignity in their routines, the wealth in their connections. His phone buzzes. Another message from his father, each word weighted with expectation. Meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Time to end this foolishness. Lucas's jaw tightens. He remembers the contempt in Richard Harrington's voice when he mentioned Maria's name. That woman, he'd said, as if Maria's lack of pedigree made her less than human, as if her tireless work ethic and fierce love for Sophia weren't worth more than all the trust funds in Manhattan. The cold seeps through his jacket. Not Armani anymore, but a practical wool blend that keeps him warm on early morning produce runs. Lucas remembers the first time he saw real hunger in someone's eyes when Mrs. Rodriguez came to the deli counter where he worked, counting pennies for bologna. He'd sliced it extra thick, made sure the scale tipped in her favor. The gratitude in her smile taught him more about wealth than any portfolio ever had. Children shriek with delight as they chase each other across frost-bitten grass. Lucas watches a boy help his younger sister up after she falls, brushing dirt from her knees with clumsy kindness. It reminds him of Sophia's face when he taught her to ride a bike, her determination matching his own as she wobbled down the sidewalk. The memory twists something in his chest, pride mixed with protectiveness, a feeling no amount of money could buy. His old life feels like a fever dream now. The endless parties, the performative friendships, the hollow laughter that never reached anyone's eyes. He'd thought he was untouchable then, armored in privilege and family connections. Now he knows true strength comes from vulnerability, from showing up every day and earning your place in the world. Lucas pulls out his phone again, thumb hovering over his father's message. The choice stretches before him like a fault line. Return to the golden cage of his past, or build something real with his own hands. His skin prickles with the weight of the moment. He types quickly, "I'll be there." The reply comes instantly, "Good, you're making the right choice." Lucas almost laughs. For the first time in his life, he knows exactly what the right choice is. He stands, muscles protesting from yesterday's inventory shift. The Manhattan skyline catches the late afternoon light, glass towers bleeding gold. It looks different now. Not a kingdom he's entitled to, but a reminder of everything he's grown beyond. He needs to see Maria. East Briarwood greets him with familiar sounds. Mrs. Hernandez calling to her cats, the rhythmic thump of basketballs from the community court, Mr. Peters' radio playing old jazz through an open window. These streets that once felt like exile now feel like coming home. Neighbors nod as he passes, their recognition earned through months of small kindnesses and shared struggles. Jared looks up from sweeping the bodega steps. "Big night, man." Lucas pauses. "You could say that?" "Hey," Jared's voice turns serious. "Whatever happens, you got people in your corner now. Real people." The words settle in Lucas's chest like anchor points. He nods, throat tight, and continues walking. Every step takes him further from the person he used to be, closer to the man he's becoming. The climb to Maria's apartment feels shorter than it did 6 months ago. Lucas remembers that first night, dragging his designer suitcase up these stairs, choking on pride and fear. Now his footsteps are sure, each one carrying him home. Maria opens the door before he knocks. She must have been watching for him. Her dark eyes search his face, reading the tension in his jaw, the determination in his stance. "You're going," she says. Not a question. Lucas steps inside. It's the familiar scent of Maria's cooking wrapping around him like an embrace. Sophia's homework is spread across the kitchen table, her careful handwriting a testament to Maria's patience and persistence. "I have to face them," Lucas says. "End this on my terms." Maria's expression stays neutral, but Lucas catches the slight tremor in her hands as she turns to stir something on the stove. He knows her tells now, the way she busies herself when she's afraid, how she squares her shoulders against disappointment. Maria? His voice catches. Look at me. She turns, and the vulnerability in her eyes nearly breaks him. This woman who never asks for help, who carries the world without complaint, who taught him what real strength looks like, she's afraid he'll choose his old life over this, over her. I'm coming back, Lucas says. The words feel like vows. Whatever they offer, whatever they threaten, I'm coming back to you, to Sophia, to this life we're building. Maria's eyes shine. You better, she whispers, because if you break my daughter's heart, I'll break every bone in your body. Lucas laughs, the sound warm with relief and love. I believe you. Sophia bursts in from her room, backpack clutched to her chest. Lucas, can you help me with my science project? I have to build a volcano, and Mom says... She stops, reading the atmosphere. What's wrong? Lucas kneels to her level, something he never would have done in his $1,000 suits. Nothing's wrong, kiddo. I just have an important meeting tonight. But tomorrow, we're building the best volcano this school has ever seen. Sophia studies him with that unnerving directness children possess. Promise? Cross my heart. Lucas draws an X over his chest, and Sophia grins. Okay, but it has to be red lava, not orange. Orange is boring. Lucas catches Maria's eye over Sophia's head, sees the mix of trust and fear there. He stands, drawing both of them into a hug. Sophia squirms and giggles, but Maria holds on tight, her face pressed against his shoulder. I love you, he whispers, the words still new enough to feel miraculous. Both of you. Maria's arms tighten in response. Later, standing in the lobby of Harrington Enterprises, Lucas straightens his tie. It's not designer anymore, but it's clean and pressed, chosen with the care Maria taught him to take in small things. The security guard does a double take. Lucas looks different now, carries himself differently. The arrogance has been replaced by something steadier, more grounded. The elevator rises smoothly, each floor marking another step toward confrontation. Lucas watches the numbers climb, remembering how he used to treat this building like his personal playground. Now it feels like what it is, a monument to power and expectations, a golden cage he's finally strong enough to leave. The conference room door looms before him. Polished mahogany and brass that once represented everything he thought he wanted. Lucas takes a deep breath, feeling the strength in his calloused hands, the purpose in his heart. He opens the door. Richard and Elizabeth Harrington rise from their seats like royalty granting audience. His father's suit probably costs more than Lucas makes in 2 months now. His mother's jewelry could feed half of East Briarwood for a year. Lucas. Richard's voice fills the room with authority. Sit down. Lucas remains standing, his posture easy but firm. I'm fine here. Elizabeth's hands flutter like nervous birds. Darling, you look different. I am different. Lucas meets his father's steel gaze. That's why we're here, isn't it? Richard leans forward, hands flat on the polished table. This has gone on long enough. You've had your little adventure in poverty tourism. It's time to come home, take your place in the company. My place? Lucas's laugh holds no humor. You mean the place you decided for me before I was born? We want what's best for you, Elizabeth says softly. Lucas turns to her, seeing the genuine concern beneath her perfectly maintained facade. What's best for me, or what's best for the family name? Don't be dramatic. Richard stands, his presence filling the room. Everything can go back to the way it was. Your accounts will be restored, your position waiting. All you have to do is leave that woman and her child behind. The words hit Lucas like a physical blow. He thinks of Maria's hands, strong and gentle as she bandages Sophia's scraped knee. He thinks of community dinners in cramped apartments, of neighbors sharing what little they have, of love that asks for nothing but offers everything. That woman, Lucas says, his voice tight with controlled anger, has more integrity in her little finger than this entire building. She works 3 jobs without complaining, raises her daughter with grace and strength, and still finds time to help anyone who needs it. And what? Richard's voice drips with disdain. You think playing shopkeeper with her makes you noble? You're throwing away everything we built for you. No. Lucas straightens, meeting his father's gaze. I'm building something of my own, something real. Real? Richard barks a laugh. What's real about stocking shelves and living in a slum? What's real is waking up every morning knowing I earned my place in the world. What's real is Sophia's face when she masters her multiplication tables, or Mrs. Hernandez bringing us soup when Maria's too tired to cook, or Jared teaching me how to fix a broken register at 3 in the morning. Lucas takes a step forward, his voice gaining strength. What's real is learning that wealth isn't about what you have, it's about what you give. It's about the connections you build, the trust you earn, the love you choose every single day. Elizabeth's eyes fill with tears, but Lucas sees something else there too, understanding, maybe even pride. Richard's jaw works silently, color rising in his face. If you walk out that door, Richard says, each word precise as a blade, there's no coming back, no safety net, no inheritance, nothing. Lucas feels a weight lift from his shoulders. He turns toward the door, then pauses. You know what I learned in East Briarwood, Dad? Sometimes having nothing is what shows you everything you have. The door closes behind him with quiet finality. Lucas walks through the marble lobby, past the judgmental stares and whispered comments. Outside, the night air hits his face like freedom. He takes the subway back to East Briarwood, watching the city blur past underground windows. Each stop brings him closer to home, not the penthouse he once occupied, but the small apartment where love fills every corner. Maria opens the door before he can knock. Her face is tight with anxiety, eyes searching his for answers. You're back, she whispers, hope and fear tangling in her voice. Lucas steps inside, the warmth of the apartment, their apartment, wrapping around him like a blessing. I told them no, he says, his voice trembling slightly. I chose this. I chose you. Maria's eyes widen, tears spilling over. Lucas takes her hand gently, feeling the strength in her fingers, the tiny scars from years of work. I know I've messed up so many times, he says, but I want to build something real with you and Sophia, if you'll let me. Maria's lips tremble into a smile. You mean it? Lucas nods, his heart full. More than anything in the world. A small sound makes them turn. Sophia peeks out from behind the couch, her dark eyes huge with hope. Lucas? She runs to him, and Lucas scoops her up, holding her close. The trust in her embrace cracks something open in his chest, letting light flood in. You're staying? Sophia asks against his shoulder. Lucas meets Maria's gaze over Sophia's head, seeing their future in her eyes. Yeah, kiddo, he says. I'm staying. Maria watches them, her heart visible in her expression. For the first time, the future doesn't loom like a threat. It spreads before them like a promise, waiting to be kept. That night, they eat dinner together, simple food that tastes better than any 5-star meal Lucas can remember. He clears the dishes without being asked, the domestic act carrying more meaning than any grand gesture. While helping Sophia with her homework, he catches Maria watching them, her smile soft with something like peace. As the evening winds down, Maria brings him a cup of coffee, not designer roast in bone china, but strong and sweet in a chipped mug. Welcome home, she whispers. Lucas feels the words settle deep in his heart. This isn't just a place to stay. It's a life he's choosing, moment by moment, day by day. Months pass like pages turning. Lucas and Maria stand outside their new venture, Harrington and Alvarez Community Market. The sign is modest compared to the gleaming monuments of his past, but the pride in Lucas's chest could fill a skyscraper. Inside, shelves stock fresh produce and local goods at prices the neighborhood can afford. Maria greets customers by name, remembering their stories, their struggles, their triumphs. Lucas helps a child reach for a high shelf, remembering when such tasks were beneath his notice. The market becomes more than a store. It's a gathering place where neighbors connect and support each other. To Lucas's surprise, his family reaches out, not with conditions, but with understanding. He uses part of his inheritance to fund community projects, creating scholarships and services for families who remind him of Maria's strength. Lucas walks through the market, savoring the hum of conversation and laughter. Maria smiles at him from the register, her eyes bright with shared purpose. Sophia waves from the back, where she's helping sort supplies with the serious concentration of a 9-year-old determined to contribute. This life, built on love, work, and integrity, fills spaces in Lucas he never knew were empty. He's found his true wealth, not in fortunes or status, but in the simple, honest joy of a life well lived. In the early evening, Lucas, Maria, and Sophia walk home together. The setting sun bathes East Briarwood in golden light, transforming humble brick buildings into palaces of possibility. Lucas takes Maria's hand, their fingers intertwining with practiced familiarity. Sophia skips ahead, her laughter ringing out like bells. Lucas breathes in the cool air, tasting possibility. The weight of his old life is gone, replaced by something lighter but infinitely stronger. He doesn't miss the penthouse or the endless parties or the hollow praise of fair-weather friends. As they reach their apartment, Lucas smiles. This is home, not because it's grand or expensive, but because it's real. This is wealth, not measured in dollars, but in moments of grace. This is freedom, not from responsibility, but for it. He has everything he needs right here, earned through sweat and love and daily choice. Lucas Harrington, once heir to an empire of glass and steel, has found his kingdom in a walk-up apartment, a community market, and the hearts of a woman and child brave enough to believe in second chances. The night settles around them like a blessing, stars appearing one by one above the city streets. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own opportunities for growth. But for now, Lucas holds Maria close, watches Sophia arrange her homework on the kitchen table, and knows with bone-deep certainty that he is exactly where he belongs. This is wealth. This is purpose. This is home. The end. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.